Welcome to The Real Build.
You leave this world behind, so live a life you will remember.
Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Ryman, your broker builder. And today I got another amazing guest on the show for you. I'm thrilled to have him as a guest. Uh, he's not just an advocate for trades, but a living example of an incredible potential of the blue collar careers. He started at a young age of 15 as a ditch digger. He worked his way up to become a highly successful entrepreneur and mentor. His message is simple yet powerful. You don't need a college degree to achieve financial freedom and live the life of your dreams. He is the president of Rusk Industries, a blue collar construction entrepreneur, the author of Wall Street Journal bestseller Blue Collar Cash. He has dedicated his career to helping others embrace the trades, build their own success stories, and create lives they love. Ken Rusk, welcome to The Real Build. How you doing today?
Thanks. I appreciate it, Bill. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Excited to have you on, get into your book a little bit as well, too. You've done some major things in the construction industry, so I'm excited to talk about it today. But before we get into that, let's talk about you a little bit. So who is Ken Rusk?
Well, I guess you could accuse me of being a blue collar entrepreneur, as we all are, and I just think that's a wonderful title to be thrown at because when you think of people that are entrepreneurs, you always think of high tech, or you think of Silicon Valley, or you think of people that are inventing things, or in the pharmaceutical and whatever. And it's just great. When I was 15, my high school shared a fence with an industrial park. And we used to cut through the hole in the fence after school and go hang out at the carryout, which is what we did back in the day before there was all these electronic devices to keep our attention. And so going through this parking lot, there's industrial park, a lot of businesses that were like hustle bustle, a lot of energy going on. And, I needed my first full-time job, so I wanted to buy my first used car and maybe take my girlfriend out for pizza or go bowling with my buddies or whatever. So I walked into this building and I said, "What do you do here?" They said, "We dig ditches." And I said, "I'm wholly qualified to do that. So let's go." And yeah, I just started doing that. Dug ditches in the summertime and worked in the office in the wintertime. And that led to, when I was 18, it was either college or work. What was I going to do? And they said, "Hey, you've seen both sides of the house. We want to open franchises around the country, and we want you to help us do that." So I lived out of a suitcase for 4 or 5 years, just opening up brand new franchises from scratch in Columbus and Chicago and Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. And after a while, I got really tired of living out of a suitcase. So I opened my first office on my own in Northwest Ohio. I did that in '86. Started with 6 people, and I think we have 200 today. So it's been a hell of a ride.
So talk about your company a little bit today, what you do, just so the audience knows as well what your construction business
Well, we
is.
basically do anything with a foundation. We dig a lot of ditches. We drain water away from foundations. We lift up old houses, rip the basements out, put a new basement in, set the house back down. Anything from a sump pump to an air handler to an air purifier to a battery backup system to rebuilding walls. It's all concrete and jackhammers and all that fun stuff. And um, it is an honor to work with people who work so hard, who work with their hands. And it's something that I've kind of dedicated the last 10 years of my life and just putting out the word that, hey, this whole lie you've been told about it's college or McDonald's. I mean, that's just so wrong. And the only person that serves is the people that, run the colleges. So yeah, I just wanted to get it out there that we have to have balance in our life and in our economy, and we need to get back to thinking that way.
It's such a critical or like crucial message too that you're delivering right there. I'm 100% with you. I mean, I went to college. What did I get out of it? I look at myself, right? And I majored in business, had a major market or minor in marketing, and the marketing stuff I learned back then, I mean, it doesn't work today. And then obviously the business side of things too, they didn't really teach me, how to run a business. It was a lot of book stuff, math stuff, a lot of it was unnecessary for the real world. Where I've learned the most was growing up in the construction business. I was always around it. My dad was a concrete guy, and then he built custom homes outside of Chicago. And as a little kid, I was always working for him. I was digging ditches like yourself, or I had a broom in my hand cleaning up job sites, or just doing the grunt work, I
Sure.
call it, And
Picking up nails, right?
yep, yeah, exactly, exactly. And just in learning, that's what taught me and gave me a respect for the business too. So I'm a big believer in what you're saying too, because yeah, college, it's good for some careers. I wouldn't want my doctor to be doing surgery on me without going to college. So let's put it that way.
Right.
But there's so much opportunity in the construction world right now in the blue collar jobs. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I've been on a lot of podcasts and I've been on a lot of media, and this typically gets people to understand where we're at. By the time you put your feet on the floor getting out of bed, to the time you go to your office, school, church, wherever you're going, you are literally going to walk or drive across 10,000 blue collar jobs that are still viable today. And I mean 10,000, from the guy who makes the truck to the
Hmm.
guy who makes the tires that go on the truck to the guy who makes the boots that you wear to put on so that you can get into the truck. I mean, if you think about all of the things that are out there, there's tens of thousands of jobs that are still viable today. There's 167 million people in the United States today considered full unemployment or fully employed. That would be fully or full employment there. So 77 million of those people, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I painfully looked it up when I was writing the book, 77 million of those people still do something with their hands to this very moment. And so I think that if you ask the general public, they would probably say 20% of the workers are blue collar workers and 80% do something in an office. And it's just patently not right. So, you know, again, I'm like you. If you're going to operate on my shoulder so I can get back out on the golf course, I want you to know everything there is to know about a knife before you come at me with it. But, same goes for a teacher or a lawyer or an architect
Hmm.
or engineer or whatever, financial guy. But having said that, we are overproducing in mass scale these bland, non-specific business degrees, and we're underproducing, people that can do things, build things, fix things, repair things, maintain things, create things. And that's creating this imbalance that, while it might be bad news for some, it's really great news for those of you who are contrarian thinking enough to go, well, you know what? If the whole herd's going this way, I'm going to go that way because there's obviously something here that needs to be filled. And as you know, so where supply is low and demand is high, that's where the money goes. And that's what you're seeing now in what we do with our hands on a daily basis.
Yeah, and if you look at everything too, I mean, we need plumbers, we need electricians, we need these blue collar jobs to operate our daily lives, and yeah, it's just there's so much opportunity out there because there's a lot of the older demographic right now that's retiring or wanting to sell their businesses or whatever that don't have kids to pass it on to, or they do have kids that didn't want anything to do with it because they'd rather work on computers or whatever and didn't want to work with their hands. So those opportunities for people that actually want to work with their hands and it's just there's like I look at it this way, and I always jokingly say this to my wife too. I'm like, aren't you glad you're with somebody that knows how to fix everything? You know, and she's like, oh
Right.
yeah. She goes, yeah, definitely, because I everything around the house I can do it because I've learned it. My dad taught me, and I'm going to teach my son the same thing. And it's just, from having experience within those trades and there's some things that I probably could fix, but I won't. But and if it's hardcore electrical and stuff, I might not want to get zapped or something, but it's
Sure.
just there's so much opportunity out there, like you said, a lot of opportunity.
Well, and it's interesting because for every 10 electricians that are retiring today, and the average age of an electrician is 54, there's only five coming online.
Mm.
So think what's going to happen if that continues. And the same goes with carpenters, especially finished carpenters. Same goes with plumbers and welders. And so, you know, I look at it this way. There was a statistic put out there, and statistics are just that, but they claim that 35% of white collar workers are happy in their job, but
Mm.
65% of blue collar workers are happy in their job. Now, why is that? Well, typically in a blue collar job, you get to control your input, your personal output, the quality of that output. You get to control your day, your schedule, your time. You get to control your financial gain. So you have this ability to hold yourself accountable, much like a pro golfer does, because if they don't win something on the weekend, they don't get paid. You know what I mean? They're some of those guys that they're grinding it out, and if they don't finish in the top 50, they're not making any money, right? So I look at the quality of life satisfaction rating, and I think, well, there's something to that because I'm not on the 15th floor in some cubicle selling medical supplies, or I don't know how I fit into this company, you know, but yet I see this guy out there in his new pickup truck and he's got his jeans and his boots on. He's got his Ozzy Osbourne t-shirt on. He's got his cup of coffee and he's blaring Zeppelin and he's going to his job site and he gets out and he's creating this amazing outdoor kitchen out of stone that only an artist could do. And there's a lot of envy towards that, even though there's this stigma towards it, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. Um, and yet these are the people that have much more job satisfaction. So I look at those factors and I say, if people only knew, and the reason they don't is because nobody asks us. Nobody asks blue collar workers what they think. Nobody asks us what we make, what we earn, which would shock people.
Mhm.
Nobody, nobody, all the statistics around this type of stuff are from one PhD to another PhD. Well, those guys don't know anything when it comes to real world experiences. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. We need to change the whole culture around what's happening here because if people only knew the amazing, not only satisfaction, but the control that you have over your life and the control that you have over your future and the money you can make, I think parents would be making a lot of different decisions rather than spending all that money to send their kids to school.
Mm. Why do you think there is such a bad stigma when it comes to blue collar work and construction? Why do you think that mindset exists?
Well, it's real simple. So when I grew up, there was shop class in high school.
Yeah.
I could walk down the hallway and I could see a guy fixing a transmission on a Mustang. I could see another guy or a gal welding something. I could see someone over there doing hair or nails on somebody else. I could see someone cooking or maybe turning a leg on a lathe for a table. Those rooms got decimated and they were replaced with computers. Now I get it. We all needed to learn computers, but why did it have to be one or the other? Why couldn't we have had both, right? So that's the first leg of this perfect storm. The second leg is when I was younger, we ran around the backyard, we built tree forts, we dammed up ditches or creeks, and we fixed our own bikes, we planted trees and raked the beds and pulled weeds and all that kind of stuff. Now you got kids spending hours on these stupid screens,
Hmm.
and maybe they're building Minecraft on their, but that's not the same experience. You and I both know that, right? Well, the third leg of this perfect storm is colleges have gotten really, really good at shaming parents into thinking you're not done raising your kid until he or she has a college degree. And that's the worst offender of all because nobody benefits from that mindset except the bottom lines of the colleges. And oh, by the way, again, when the college is done with you, they're done with you. They don't
Hmm.
have any skin in the game to find you a job. They don't have any skin in the game to make sure that what you're studying is something your community actually needs, a job specific need. So they just fill you full of knowledge, take your money, and then off you go, and they're on to the next victim. They could care less what happens to you after you leave. And that's part of the real shame in this thing, because even the money that they get comes from the government. They don't loan their own money to students.
Hmm.
It's a rigged system for someone who used to be able to accidentally discover how cool it was to be a carpenter. And so I even wrote an open letter to parents, and I said, listen, it's on my website at kenrusk.com. I said, listen, I get it. I'm a parent. You birth your child and you swaddle your child and you clothe them and you feed them and you shelter them and you keep them safe and you try to teach them what you know. And then you think that the only way you can be called a good parent is if you give them some expensive degree. Well, that's the part where it goes south for me, because are you raising an educated child? Is that your goal? Or is it your goal to raise an independent, money managing, problem solving, you know, contributing member of society? I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know a lot of kids that have degrees that can't hit their butt with both hands, and you know the people I'm talking about. So it really is a shame that we have this thing where we think the only way we can be good parents is to finish them off with that 4-year degree, because it's never been true, and it's certainly not true today.
But a lot of them get degrees too, and then they get out of college and then they have nowhere to go, and they end up going back to their Starbucks job or where their restaurant job, bartending or whatever it
Right.
is. And it's like, one thing you said there too that is so important. Like when I was in high school, it was I might age myself a little bit, but it was before the iPhone and stuff like that was out, and we had a class called construction tech. And we were doing, we were building a house for Habitats for Humanity, and that taught us a lot and a lot of the
Love it.
students and stuff too. But they actually had construction tech class. Now going back to my high school, because I went and volunteered and helped coach football, that construction tech area is now a wrestling area. They just put wrestling mats and there's no more construction tech. They got rid of it years ago, probably because something happened, a parent complained, who knows, and liability reasons or whatever. I've talked to other builders about how do we get these programs back into school because they were so important. How do you get shop class back into schools? And, because I feel like that soft nature has kind of gone into these schools where people are on edge and they're afraid to have these programs where somebody might get hurt and the liability or the school might get sued because everybody got sue crazy. And you talked about the iPads with kids too. Like my wife and I are big advocates on no, iPads. Don't just put a screen in front of your kid to shut them up, stuff like that. But a lot of parents, like you go out to a restaurant, you'll see it. Their kids are all just sitting on screens.
Right.
Nobody's talking to each other, having a conversation. And it's become laziness, is truly what it is. When I was a kid, we used to go out and have to play. We used to always have to go out and build things and create our own fun, whether it was playing manhunt in the woods or whatever. You had to use your imagination. Now it's a lot of screens and and I'm not like you, I'm not saying everything on a screen is bad, but when the kids spend all the time in the world and then you're giving it to them to shut them up, that's a problem. Where's their creative aspect? Where they need to learn stuff. Like you said, I'm a big advocate as with my son as he gets older, like teaching him the things and making him work too. Having to work like my dad made me have to work as a kid for everything that I wanted. That's an important thing that I think a lot of parents are missing out on.
Well, first off, I would not be a very good school principal because I would do things I mean, if you wanted to go on a computer, you would have to power it with a treadmill. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
If you wanted to go on a screen, I would give you 30 minutes a day to view your screen.
Yep.
Okay. And then that's it. It'd get locked up. You would have to have 5,000 steps a day on your pedometer. Okay. Because the only way you could do that is to go run around outside and, do something. So I would be way different. I mean, we need to like rethink. Did you know? And this is crazy because I gave a speech in front of 50 guidance counselors, and you're not allowed to call them guidance counselors anymore because that's a stigma. You have to call them school counselors. Okay, fine. The first thing I did when I stood in front of them and I said, "So nice to be talking to a bunch of guidance counselors," and they all they all looked at me and they said, "Oh, you can't say that anymore." And I said, I know, I already heard." But I was telling this stuff that we're talking about today. And then, they stood in line because I did a book signing afterwards. And that 47 of the 50 stayed behind to get a book. And 47 of the 50, most of them said to me, we're not allowed to say the things you say, but you need to say this a lot louder.
Mm.
Okay. So even they themselves, because they were telling me that there are high schools that are given more money based on how many college prep people they produce. Now, how sad is that? When you think about it, they're told to, my high school is now a college prep school. And Bill, I walked through it. Nothing's changed. It's the same school, but now it's
Yeah.
called a college prep school. So I say to myself, if I'm going into that school and I want to be a carpenter, am I now ostracized from this community? I mean, do I not fit in? I mean, I'm like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? Walking in there. This is the time of year to talk about him. He doesn't fit in because he wants to be a carpenter, but yet this is a college prep school, but yet the school didn't change it all. They just put the word college prep on the wall. It's really an odd thing that's happening with the community, and even the teachers themselves. Oh yeah, we're so proud that we put out all these college prep kids, and yet in the same breath they'll complain about the fact that they just paid $600 and waited 3 weeks to get an outlet changed in their house.
Wow.
So it's an interesting dynamic, but it's one that begins with, to answer your question, it begins with the schools themselves and the parents' attitudes towards what is success in life. And if we can change that a little bit, and I think it's starting to change, actually, you'll see that pendulum at least come back to the middle where it belongs.
I think entrepreneurs or I think entrepreneurship in general and not forcing college is becoming more known. I think people are willing to, whether they work their ways up in a business or start their own, because I mean, starting your own business isn't for everybody. Some people
Right.
start them not realizing how hard business actually is. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are capable of it that kind of got sold the college dream, and the college dream usually works your way into working for somebody else and sitting in a cubicle and being not very happy. Some might be happy, but
Right.
a lot of them aren't. So one thing you said there though is talking to those guidance counselors, I'll still call them guidance counselors because that's what I called them.
Yeah.
Uh, they said for you to be louder about it. So how can you be louder to spread the word? Obviously, you wrote your book too, and I want to talk about that. But how can we be louder as blue collar people and contractors within the industry?
Well, first off, go to where the indoctrination begins.
Yeah.
I speak in front of boys and girls clubs. I speak in front of junior achievement. I'm doing something next month in front of junior achievement. And, go to these career days where you have these, in small town Toledo, Ohio, they had a career day where all the everybody, first responders, ambulance drivers and firefighters and policemen and carpenters and HVAC people and concrete people, they all set up booths in this big hall and they invited these students to come.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because when I first started speaking there was 20 exhibits and now there's 90. When I first started speaking there was 300 kids that came through. Now there's 3,000 kids that come through. So the buses just push them right through there. And it's one way for them to walk around and go, oh, okay. It's like shop class on steroids because they get to see all this stuff going on and they get to actually work drills and they work saws and they work, hammer, I should say nail guns, and they work all these things. They build walls, and it's just a cool afternoon for them to come in and hang out and see what's happening there. So we just have to get to the kids before they're 15, 16, 17, because in that period of time, the high schools are going, what college are you going to and what career are you going to have? And how the hell would they even know that at 15, 16? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they that's when they start to really focus in on how many college degrees they're going to produce, which again is sad. But I'm like you. I say, um, you know, if you're willing to put your kid on a school bus with a driver, you have no idea who that is, and have them drive them every single day through traffic, then what's wrong with having them run a lathe on a lathe or a nail gun? Or what's wrong with have under supervision, under training, under all these things, of course. I think we risk our kids every single day and just in life itself. And yeah, is there such a thing as an accident? Of course there is. But kids aren't smashing their fingers with hammers anymore because nail guns have safeties on them.
Hmm.
And so there are things that you can do to mitigate some of that risk. But to your point, nobody ever rolled up in my driveway, and I've been very successful. I've been very lucky. And I've been, the harder you work, the luckier you get. You know that. And I'm very grateful. But Bill, no one ever rolled up into my driveway and looked at what I've accomplished and saw the things that I've created and achieved and acquired and said, "Wow, dude, what college degree do you have?" I mean, no one's ever asked me that. They asked me how I ground this life out, and I'm happy to tell you how I did that. But yeah, there is a little bit of risk in all those things. But to your point, I'd rather have somebody like yourself who can fix, change, repair, improve, create almost anything than have you be this one-sided guy with a degree that you may never use. When I wrote the book, the research on colleges, and again, I don't want to beat up colleges because if there's a job specific degree for a job specific occupation, fine. But man, 40% of kids go to college not knowing why they're going. That's
Hmm.
crazy. 25% of them change their degree. That's wasteful. But only 33% of them ever use their degree ever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that was a business, it would fail just on its model.
Wow.
So it's unusual. And all I'm saying is, as a parent, at least take a second to look at these other things before you just herd your child into the societal norm.
It's so true, though. A lot on on the statistic about people barely using their degree. It's so true. And then also going to college. Like when I went to college, I was a football player, so that's the primary reason I went. I mean, football was everything. That's the only reason I did go. But then I eventually, after my football career was done and shoulder surgery and so on, I ended up going back just to finish my degree. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I took the easiest outlet, which was business management, I thought. And um, going looking back, I wish I would have probably done something else, a little bit more technical, or maybe architecture or something more of interest to me because I was very creative. But you really are spot on. You really don't know. I mean, unless you're saying you're going to be a doctor and that's what you're going to do and so on, or be a lawyer and so on and so on. But I didn't really get anything out of what I did. I mean, I probably took some life lessons and so on. I can't say it's a complete waste, but was it worth for me to do what I do today? No, because once again, like I said, I've learned a lot through actually swinging a hammer, getting into the trenches, learning a business through actually running a business or through mentors and entrepreneurs and other people asking questions about their successful businesses as well. College didn't teach me that, so I could have done it without it. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are the same way. And unfortunately, the trades are looked down upon in ways too. And contractors have gotten a bad rap over the years too. I've had this discussion with many contractors on this podcast of how we can be better, how we can improve the reputation of contractors. And this podcast is a way of that, having good people on like yourself too, because I think that's part of the problem with construction too. Late, no shows, late, their timelines aren't correct, or contracts are vague. They take money, they don't finish the job, they don't show up, stuff like that. So how do you see that improving too? Obviously, you wrote your book, um, Blue Collar Cash, and I want to talk about that to and why you wrote it, but how do you see the overall view of contractors improving?
Well, first off, thank you for your football experience. My nephew plays for the University of Toledo Rockets,
Oh,
and
nice.
he was involved in that game last night that went six overtimes.
Oh, wow.
Um,
He's probably
yeah, it
tired
was
today.
he's five. It was a 5 hour football game,
Wow.
and and they ended up winning, so that was pretty cool. But to answer your question, well, first off, hopefully technology is going to improve, um, things that contractors go through. And I'm speaking of like the new nail guns, the new way that you put an outlet in, you just pound it in without, having to wire hot wires, and the way we're lifting things, the way we're transporting things, all those technological things, even some of the AI tools where, you know, you're standing on a roof and you need another piece of roof plywood, but you only want it 36 by 48, and you just hover your phone above it and it sends a message down to the guy on the ground who cuts it for you. Okay. And so now that it eliminates a trip up and down off the roof, and it eliminates a lot of those inefficiencies and safety things. So I think some of those things are going to continue to be good. When it comes to contractors themselves, all I can tell you is if you truly want your company to run smoothly, and this is where I get all the pushback from this statement, but it's absolutely true, and I've seen it over countless contractors and 40 years in business. You have to make yourself personally irrelevant to your company. And I mean, you got to get out of the trenches, you got to get off the hammer, you have to rise above your company
Hmm.
and create the entrepreneurship that drives your company forward. Because what's going to happen is, if you can find people who believe this statement, wow, I can get what I want for myself personally, I can build my life the way I see it with and through Ken's company, then now you've got something, because now you have a group of people who are willing to be entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs, which is what you are. But then you take all the risk too. You've
Hmm.
got the builder's risk and the vehicles and the insurances and the workers' comp. You've got all those things that they won't have, but they still feel like they're mini managers, mini owners, mini, business. They control their departments. Rise above your company, look back down on top of it, and look for those issues: timeliness, quality, promises made. You can create fixes for all of those things if you're not so into it that you can't see those things.
Hmm.
And that's where I've seen companies, I've coached people where their companies have gone from 100,000 to 500,000 to 1 million to 5 million, just because the guy got out of it.
Hmm.
He pulled himself out of it. And it doesn't mean that you're going to just go play golf all day. Not at all. It means you're going to sit in a theoretical helicopter and hover above your business and look back down on it and say, okay, now what do I need to fix, change, alter, improve on? That is the way contractors can improve themselves, and also to make sure that those people that they are hiring, those entrepreneurs, have a stake in the game when it comes to profitability, completion on time, and reputation. Everybody in my company, all 200 of them, are paid in one way, shape, or form based on completion times, based on efficiency, and based on reputation. I mean, we're at a 4.8 and a half on Google. We're trying to get to 4.9. It is so hard, and you know how hard that is, right? Especially in a residential or a consumer business. But they're incentivized to get us there,
Hmm.
because they have to say and do all the right things to make that happen. So what's nice is, if you pull yourself out and you allow those people, you give them the power to help drive the company with you, you will create a lot more new business, a lot more new revenue. You'll create more profit that you can then share with them based on these newfound policies that I'm talking about, based on the entrepreneurship mindset. And that's really where all the magic is in running a business. And oh, by the way, you're going to get back to working 40 hours a week. You might even take a golf lesson every once in a while. You might remember your kid's first name or what sport they're in, that kind of stuff. And get out of the ownership, or get out of that kind of prison that we put ourselves in if we're not careful.
I love that. It's so huge. I 100% agree with you. It's selling the vision, to your employees, to having a big enough vision to where they fit within that vision, right? And and that's what I try and do all the time. Like we have weekly team meetings, and every single time we have a team meeting, I'm reiterating to them that, the bigger we get, the bigger you guys get. And the more
Absolutely.
your more roles of leaders, you guys are leaders. You become leaders within this company where you're going to have people below you and training them too. But the overall reason we're doing this too is for you guys to be able to flourish and grow. And eventually, I always tell them too, like these houses, these luxury homes we're building, these homes, waterfront homes, one day you guys are going to have one too. I always say
Absolutely.
that. And it goes a long way too. And I've learned, because growing up in the business, my dad was he's old school, more old school approach, micromanage, be involved in everything type thing, where I've become opposite of that, hire great people that want to fit within that company and that vision, fit within the core values of the company, and fit in your values as well. And it's worked really well. We're doing really good. We have really good employees too, and then we have people too. They see it because with their social media and stuff and the content we're putting out, they want to work with us. They see the fun we're having as a group together because it's become like a family. So I love, love, love what you said there too. One thing I want to get in your book a little bit, like one thing you talk about in your book is, goal setting and visualization. That's huge for me too. I'm a big, big advocate of visualization. Obviously, goal setting's huge. I do my yearly goals and then I have monthly goals and so on. But, how can blue collar professionals use these techniques to achieve their dreams? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, thank you for that question. It's a great one. So, first off, stand in front of your employees and make this statement. I can't get what I want, nor can this company get what it wants or needs until all of you get what you want first.
Mm,
And the reason I say that is because companies, and companies are linear creatures. You have people and materials coming in from the left-hand side of the screen, and they go through this process of creating a product or a service or a software or building something or whatever. And then there's a price attached to it. And then somebody sells that thing, and then hopefully there's profit at the end of that line. Well, you as the owner, you're always at the end of that line. You don't get paid before anything happens. You get paid after it does. So why wouldn't you want everyone within that line in front of you to win really big for themselves?
hmm
Because if they do, then you do. Well, part of the part of the book Blue Collar Cash, in fact, most of the book Blue Collar Cash talks about mindset and forward-looking vision, because what people don't understand is, they look at Elon Musk and they go, wow, and Stephen Jobs, wow, Apple Computer, and they look at, Bill Gates, wow, Microsoft. How those guys must have brains the size of a huge pump. No, they just know how to use the visual side of their brain way better than anybody else does. They know how to see things and then manifest those things into reality. Okay.
hmm
All of us have had the same practice, and I'll tell you what it is. So every one of us and all of your listeners probably know how to plan a perfect vacation, right? It's winter in Ohio right now. There's a lot of people planning spring break, and they plan it. Okay, I'm gonna get on a plane. I'm gonna go to Florida. I'm gonna rent this hotel. It's right on the beach. I'm gonna put my feet in the sand. I'm gonna sit on that lounge chair. I'm gonna put that umbrella up. I'm gonna put on my Pearl Jam. I'm gonna have that margarita. I'm gonna put on that copper tone #8 suntan lotion that we all know what that smells like as we're from being a kid. And I'm going to feel the warm breeze and the waves crashing on the ocean. We all have such good sensory vision when it comes to planning a vacation, right? Why don't we use that same mechanism throughout the other parts of our lives?
Mm.
I'm talking about what kind of house do I want to live in? What kind of car do I want to drive? What kind of uh, charity do I want to donate to with my time, talent, and my treasure? What kind of pet do I want? A dog or a cat? What color? What would I name it? What's my health routine? What's my workout routine? What's my sport routine? What's my family look like? My family life, my spirituality part. If you could plan all of those things like you plan a vacation, you would have all of these mini anticipatory factions working for you at the same time, right? And so when you think about people working within your organization, why wouldn't you want them to have all of those things cooking in their head? Okay. When you hire somebody, we always think about, well, we get them for 8 hours or 9 hours or whatever. Well, there's also in 24-hour period, there's 8 hours of sleep, hopefully, there's 8 hours of work, and there's 8 hours of something else. As an owner, why wouldn't you want to know what this something else is in every one of your people? Like
Mm.
he's into jet skiing and she's into painting and he's into travel. And why wouldn't you want to really, really dig into that? Because that right there is where you build the synergy that you were just talking about earlier. Okay. I want people to be selfish, meaning not at the detriment of another, but I want people to be working on themselves first and you as the company second. I want them to say, I'm working for me. And if I do a good enough job working for me, then you're going to win too. Because the only way I can create a good me is to work great within your framework, within your organization. So you build synergy and you build culture that way because when you hire someone, you actually mean it when you say, I want to know what's in it for you to work here.
Mm.
Instead of here's your job, here's your uniform, here's your time clock, here's your hourly rate, here's your lunch hour. Forget about all that. I want to know why you're here down to the most unbelievable finite detail because you and me are going to form a partnership and we're going to walk this life together. You're going to get what you want for yourself out of this job and out of this career. I'm going to help you make sure you do that. I'll probably have 5% of the work to do and you'll have the other 95, but that doesn't matter. The focus is you. And if you can do that multiple times within your company, I'm telling you, Bill, get out of the way. Yeah, let them do their thing and just move aside because they're going to drive your company way further than you can drive it yourself.
Why do you think construction companies struggle with that so much, though? There's good ones out there that don't, but there's a lot of them that are, pretty cutthroat, punch in the time clock and just get to work and show up and probably cycle through a bunch of employees and then the employees are job hopping to the next place and there's just no good culture, no good camaraderie. It's just come in and work. Why do you think that's been part of the construction industry for so long?
Well, a couple of things. The traditional owner is the one that's doing the work. The traditional owner is the one that's
True.
overly involved. The traditional owner is the one that, you know, goes home on Saturday and says, beats their chest and say, man, honey, you should have seen me. I fixed this. I yelled at this guy. I changed that. I did all these things. I also have high blood pressure, diabetes, and I don't know my kids' names, but we're making a few bucks, so that's okay. So that's the first part of the problem. The second part of it is they don't realize how much money it costs to hire one person.
Hmm.
We did a lot of research on this. To hire one person costs your company between $1,200 and $4,000. And you think, well, wow, the ad wasn't that expensive. No, but if you think of all of the things that happen when you're training a new person, your lost attention, training that new person, the slowdown effect of the job, having other people get involved in training them and they can't do their thing. There's a $4,000 ticket number on every person that you hire potentially. And as soon as they get in touch with the fact that I don't really want a revolving door here, I would rather work 40 hours and have everybody be happy because they're all selfishly chasing things for themselves and creating awesome results within my company. they have to get to that place, and they're just not there yet. But if they realize how much money they were losing, they could give half that money back to the employees and have just an amazing stress-free life running a company instead of it running them.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's so true because through experience with our company and how I've been operating things too, and having everybody more involved, having sitting at a table with everybody and allowing them to give feedback and opinions and make decisions too. They're not making all the decisions because obviously you have a CEO for that for a reason, but they're making some critical decisions on how to operate too, and so they feel like they're a part of this, and it's not just they're a piece of it or just a pawn in the chess. They're actually a part of the building of this business, and that's what I've really strived to do as of late too. Um, we talked about obviously college and going into the corporate world. I'm curious to what your advice would be on, maybe somebody transitioning from that world into the blue collar career path. Like, what would be your advice, strategies, or what would you recommend if somebody was trying to get out of that world and come into blue collar?
Well, I can tell you it's never been easier now than I mean it's never been easier than it's been in the past. If you think about it, so I've had so many people write to me, and I'll never forget this one gentleman. He said, Ken, I was a plumber's assistant in college, and I worked my way through college doing that. I went to school because my parents told me I had to. I wound up on the 15th floor of this cubicle, and that's the medical sales supply guy I was telling you about earlier. He said I was bored stiff. I was so unhappy. I went back to becoming a plumber, and oh my God, I've never been so happy. I read your book, I took your course, and I'm like, the hell with this. I'm out. I'm going back to being a plumber's helper. Now, here's how we did it. And it's the same way with people that build furniture or whatever you think you want to do. You're ramping up one while you're exiting slowly the other. And it's there's an X in the middle, and I call it like the X factor, where one flips to the other. I had a gentleman who wanted to build river edge tables. He wanted to build furniture. So he started to do it on the weekends, and after work he would do it. And he loved it, very passionate about it. And these are these epoxy tables. They're beautiful. Well, he started selling them on the internet, which you couldn't do 20 years ago. You know what I mean? You're building these websites and these Instagram accounts, and you're getting followers, and you're building these little side gigs that are all digital, and you couldn't do that 20 years
Yeah.
ago. So now this company starts ramping up to now he's selling all these tables, and he hires a guy to help him sell some more, build some more tables, and pretty soon he can tell his day job, I'm out because he's got enough work going. So you slowly transition one down and the other one up. And it can be done, and people are doing it all over the world nowadays with internet businesses. So, you know, right now you can run a business with a cell phone and a pickup truck. You can run payroll, you can run accounts receivable, you can order stuff, accounts payable, you can do all these things. I mean, when I first started my business, I had long form graph paper and pencils. Okay, we were writing them in columns. Okay, doing numbers. So to see somebody now, you know, in my front yard, the guy that was building the kitchen, he's sitting there on his phone and he's doing payroll and he's ordering stone and he's ordering concrete to be delivered. It was crazy how he was running his company right there from the cab of his truck. And I just think to myself, that wasn't available to us many years ago. So if you're thinking about flipping a side gig into a real thing, just slowly transition it. You'll get there. I promise you.
I want to ask you one more construction question, then I'll wrap this up and get in a couple personal questions too. But you emphasized about financial independence in your book. Talk about that a little bit. Like, what simple steps can blue collar professionals take to start building, wealth within their businesses?
So the most powerful form of money is called the power of young money. And I write about this in the book. So from the time you're 21 to the time you're 63, That's 42 years. You have 6 units of 7-year periods. Okay. Well, if your money doubles every 7 years, right? Then if you wait and you miss the first six, the first 1/6 of those, the first 7 years, you've already lost the biggest double on the end. If you wait 14 years to start saving until you're 30 some, you've missed two of the final biggest doubles. And let's remember what that is. If you save $60 a week from the time you're 21 to the time you're 31, you can stop saving and you're going to have $1.2 million in your account when you retire. Nobody knows that. Parents don't teach that. High schools don't teach that. I don't know why we don't teach that. I mean, we're teaching people to be dependent on Social Security when they should be dependent on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So the final double is very powerful because that final double is probably taking your money from 500 or 600,000 to $1 million. Okay, $1.2 million. Well, if you miss out on those two, you've blown the whole theory of the power of young money. So I would say, as an owner of a business, get a 401k in your group, in your company, as fast as you can. And when you get those young guys coming in, make them 401k millionaires the day you get them. I'm talking about have them fill the paperwork out, show them the power of young money, show them this 7 units or the 6 units of 7-year doubles. Get them to understand that first $60. I mean, as an interviewer, I would say, I'm going to pay you $50,000 a year. As the interviewee, I would like you to say back to me, thank you for paying me $47,000 a year, because that first $3,000, I never had it, I never saw it, I never touched it, I never felt it, I can't spend it, I won't miss it, and I'm going to live off that $47,000. But what happens is that money sits there. I've got guys back here that have been with me for 30, 40 years that are going to have $1 million in their pocket, and they've been running jackhammers forever. Okay. And they walk around with a sense of loyalty and retention, and they have a sense of community and belonging and teamwork. And they're promoting the 401k to other people I'm not even talking to. So we have a group of it's like a little clique. We have a group of 401k millionaires in the back, and it's just an amazing thing. It got so good and the company got so powerful that I recently gave half the company back to the employees in an ESOP program where I just gave it to them. And it's an amazing thing, because now between that and the 401k, nobody's quitting. Nobody wants to go anywhere. They all want to do great things. They all want to do better things to raise the share price in their stock. And your turnover is way down. Think about the $4,000 I'm saving, not having to rehire constantly and retrain all the time, and giving that money back to them. So it's a very powerful thing for owners to, and again, you don't even have to work at it. You just put the plan in place and get people signed up and watch it work. And they get their little statements, and it says, when I'm 63 in 2050, I'm going to have $1 million X in my account. It's a beautiful thing to have them see it long term.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is so critical right there too. Because I personally would love to even look more into that for our company too, because it's huge. It makes them, like what you just talked about. It gives them an outcome to look forward to also, but also makes them feel more and more a part of the business. And you're building that culture. You're building a strong culture within. So, um, yeah, Ken, this has been awesome. I want to wrap up with a couple personal questions I ask everybody. This question I always get a great answer to. So, what about you personally? You're building an amazing company and brand that continues to grow each and every day. What lessons have you learned throughout your journey that we should all apply to our own business or lives that can help us grow?
First off, I want you to say you and only you, but it's really me and only me. Me and only me knows my favorite color, my favorite car, my favorite charity, my favorite house. Me and only me knows that stuff. Stop listening to everyone else tell you how you should live your life. Believe me, you know how to live your life. Just sit in a dark corner and think about it for a second. How do you want your brochure to look like? What do you want your nirvana to look like? Draw that out, put it on the wall somewhere, keep adding to it, put picture magazines to it, build a Pinterest board, put it on your phone. Let the power of vision drag you into the life that you want for yourself because it is the most powerful part of your brain that you're ever going to use. And most of us don't tap that nearly as much as we should.
Uh, this question always gives me some great every single time. A great answer right there too. I highly, highly agree with you too. I agree with everything on the show so far, obviously, but the power of vision and visualization, it's just people don't look at it like they should because how many times have you really wanted something, even as a kid growing up, and then you got it? And I mean, that's visualization. You were thinking about it, you wanted it, like a Christmas present or a birthday or something,
Sure.
and then you got it. That was you young doing it. And then as we get older too, there's, certain truck we might want or a car or whatever and we strive to get it and eventually you start seeing more of them around you and then eventually you have it and so on in that house. So I'm big advocate on exactly what you said there and I love that answer. Another question to wrap this up I wanted to ask you, obviously we talked about your past, let's talk about your future. So where will we see Ken in 10, 15 years from now? Who will you be?
Well, I'm I'm in the middle of writing another book on business culture, so I'm gonna be
Nice.
doing that. I'm gonna try and it's really hard to hit a bestseller. I've done that once. I'm gonna try and do it again. So we'll see if that works. I want to be a great grandfather. I want to teach my daughter or my granddaughter how to play golf. Our family's golfers and boaters, and we're car fanatics. So we love those types of things, and we have lots of fun with those types of things. So I'm going to introduce her to some of those things. Um, I definitely want to be seen as someone who was helping the younger entrepreneur. If I had a legacy, it would be, he learned it, he figured it out, he struggled, but he made it. And now he's taking those lessons and giving them to the entrepreneurs behind him because to whom much is given, much is expected in
Mm.
this life. And whether it's God or karma or whatever you want to put to it, I really believe that we need to take our life lessons and hand them off just to make the learning curve a little easier for the person behind us so they don't struggle as much. And if I was remembered as that, I think that'd be a pretty cool thing.
I have no doubt you will. And I know you and I just recently met, and I got a lot of respect for you for what you're doing, especially with the trades. We need more voices like you. And so a lot of respect goes to you. You're doing a lot of big things for the industry, and I know there's going to be much more to come. So I really do appreciate you, Ken, and keep doing what you're doing. I mean, it's great to see what you're doing. It's great to see the book. It's great every aspect of it, and I have no doubt there's much more to come, and you're going to be a big impact through the
Well, thank
construction
you. I
trades.
appreciate it. Thanks for having me on today. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we appreciate you. And with that being said, everybody, thank you all for listening. Please take the time to share this podcast. Goes a long way with your friends and family. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the routine. 5-star reviews on Apple iTunes only. This one definitely deserves that. And we will see you guys on the next episode.